going to Pulp Fiction this review because the new Dymension DM80 tower speakers from Definitive Technology are ridiculously fun. But coming to this conclusion involves a lot of plot twists, so let's get into it. DEFTECH's new flagship bipolar tower speaker, the DM80, replaces the outgoing BP series and features two 1-inch aluminum tweeters and four 5¼ mid-bass drivers. Now keep in mind, the 6 drivers don't all fire forward at you. 2 mid-bass drivers and one of the tweeters are actually located on the back side of the speaker and fire away from you for a greater sense of spaciousness. This is why the speaker is called bipolar. Rounding out the speaker's bottom end is a 12-inch 500-watt powered subwoofer that is mated to two 12-inch passive radiators, giving the entire speaker a reported total frequency response of 23 Hz to 30 kHz. Impedance is stated to be 4 ohms, though Definitive is very quick to note that the speaker is 8 ohms compatible and has a sensitivity of 90 dB, meaning that for such a big and potentially complicated speaker, it isn't too difficult to drive. Like all of the speakers in the new Dymension Series, the DM80 is marketed as a home theater speaker. We used 2 different AV receivers in our testing, Sony's new entry-level receiver, the AN1000, and their flagship, the 7000ES. Both receivers did great, especially for such an imposing speaker, so you don't necessarily have to, empty your bank account to get the most from them, which is very good news. The DEFTECHs may not require a significant investment in power, but they do require an investment of your time. They are very, and I mean very, picky about placement. Their rear-facing bipolar drivers can produce sound that is vague and even echoey when placed too close to your front wall. Sure, the sound may have room-defying width, but it also lacks focus. Thankfully, DEFTECH allows you to turn down the rear-facing drivers by -6 dB, which helps and is a setting I ultimately preferred. Regardless, even with the drivers turned down, placement still matters. The next issue you may run into has to do with the built-in subwoofers. While bass is omnidirectional, placing the sub where your speaker's mid-range and treble sounds best isn't always where the bass is going to be at its best. In our room, our left main speaker sits in a bit of a null when it comes to bass notes below 40 Hz, which is why I rely on proper subwoofer placement and sometimes additional room correction to overcome this issue. With the DM80s, you don't get that flexibility. There's no moving the subwoofer, so you have to really strike a balance between the speaker's physical placement but also its individual subwoofer levels. Yes, it's possible your settings will vary depending on each speaker's location in your room. Now, thankfully, the DM80 subwoofer amplifier is powerful enough, not to mention adjustable, to overcome a lot of potential room issues. Now, I used RoomEQ Wizard and my measurement gear to establish not only the best placement for each tower, as well as the starting volume level for their built-in subs. I positioned both speakers about 3 feet off our front wall, which is almost a foot more than the majority of speakers we've tested in this room. And I mention this because you may need similar space to work with. They needed roughly 8 feet between them with some slight toe-in towards our listening position as well. Both of the rear-facing speakers were set to -6 with the left subwoofer dial set around 10 o'clock and the right closer to 9, and this proved to be the best starting point for the DM80s. Now, my initial impression of the DEFTECH sound was pretty good, but I did sense that there was some room for improvement, and oh boy, was there ever. Because on their own, they're pretty peaky, but doing a sweep 20-20 and using correction filters inside of RoomEQ Wizard or Sony's own auto room correction produced dramatically improved results, placing the DM80s in good company with some of our favorite speakers. The presence of built-in subs allowed the speakers to play down to almost 20 Hz with absolute authority. I was never able to fully get rid of the right speaker's bass dip, but I got close enough that it wasn't that audible. Dialed in and paired with their matching center, the Dymension DM30, which is a total beast by the way, and our KLIPSCH in-ceiling speakers for surround and Atmos channels, I set the volume to stun, I fired up the Attack on Pearl Harbor sequence in the film Midway, and damn. While my personal taste leaned towards my KLIPSCH Cornwall Theater setup, I'm not going to lie, it can't hold a candle to what the DEFTECHs were able to deliver. To say the experience was transformative would be the understatement of the year. Even if their placement wasn't 100% ideal in our room, the dual-powered sub's bass notes just cracked and ripped through our space with ease, making me realize that despite having the volume set to stun, with peaks hovering around 100 decibels, the DM80, they weren't even breaking a sweat. The bass was deep, and you could feel it like down in your plums. But it wasn't one note or all boom and no nuance. No, bass was textural, responsive, and awesome. And not to be outdone or overshadowed was the mid-range. Mildly forward around the vocal range, actor dialogue, even in the face of absolute chaos, was crystal clear. There is not a lot of coloration to this speaker's mid-range, provided you have them set up correctly, and as a result, the DM80 excels at detail rendering without a great deal of resonance or mid-bass bloat, thanks to the speaker's rather good internal crossover with its built-in sub. But here's where I think I would have loved to see Definitive make some additional upgrades. Titanium tweeters are effective at conveying a lot of top-end information, so detail and extension are definitely present. But as you turn things up, the tweeter does lose some of its composure and is prone to some glare. So for me, I prefer to use our receiver's tone controls at -2 or -3 on the treble dial to combat this potential issue. At high volumes and with some mixes, the DM80's top end can become a little bit brittle. But moving on to the speaker's surround sound performance, wow. I mean, just wow. Spaciousness is out of this world. With proper placement and some toe-in, you can get close to reference-level imaging and separation. Using the matching center, I doubt anyone would complain about the accuracy of DEFTECH's soundstage. Dynamically, these are engaging speakers, starting at around 60 dB on up to 100 decibels plus. They're not quite as nimble as KLIPSCH's new RP8000F Mark IIs at lower volumes, but they are better than Martin-Logan's new Motion XT line. Of course, if you listen at full tilt, the DM80s are better dynamically from 20 to 20 compared to either of those speakers. When it comes to stereo listening, no, I didn't forget about you guys. The DM80 does not disappoint. I used the Audiolab 7000A in its preamp mode, made it to an Audiolab 8300 stereo amplifier with my mini DSP 2x4 resting between them when enjoying the DEFTECH in stereo. Bass-heavy tracks like those from Enema or Unholy by Sam Smith showcase why one may want a full-range speaker like the DM80 in a stereo setup, because once you have that sense of scale in weight, it's hard to live without it. The PEQ filters activated, the DM80 can go toe-to-toe with some truly great two-channel speakers, transporting you into the recorded event. Honestly, if the DM80 had a slightly more refined tweeter and perhaps some built-in DSP for its subwoofers, it would rank among the best full-range speakers you can buy for stereo. And this brings me to my next plot twist, because on paper, when it comes to frequency response and the speaker's ability of reproducing very good quality sound, the DM80 has the potential to hang with audiophile giants like Wilson Audio's Alex. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Because with proper placement, EQ or DSP, the DM80s are capable of doing things most mass market speakers can't. And that's to be all things in all situations. But I still feel as if DEFTECH hasn't pushed the boundaries enough with this speaker. First of all, the all-black sock look is great for an all-blacked-out home theater, but out in the open in a true high-end two-channel setup, it just isn't enough. It would be so easy for DEFTECH to alter the appearance of the speaker because they're just using fabric. Imagine the possibilities. Hell, I'll show you a few. See, now you have a speaker that suddenly feels more at home in a living space than a man cave. And while we're at it, why not put in a defeatable EQ or PEQ system for two-channel customers whose products likely don't have built-in room correction? Hell, why not make the whole speaker powered, a la the KEF LS60, and let's really get down to business. Which brings us to the comparisons. No speaker we've reviewed to date can honestly do all of the things the DM80 is capable of, so any comparison is going to come with some fine print, but here we go. Starting with the Martin-Logan Motion XT F100s, which retail for the same price. The Martin-Logan is the better speaker top to bottom on its own, meaning it doesn't require as much tweaking as the DM80 to get right. That said, once you have the DM80s dialed in, they 100% hang, and when it comes to the bass, they embarrass the F100s. I still prefer the F100s, but the DM80s are a nicer finish and a better tweeter away from pulling ahead in this race. Compared to the POLK R700s at roughly half the price, I prefer the DM80s, but I acknowledge that I can get close to or match the performance of the DEFTECHs with the POLKs when paired with a good subwoofer. But speaker to speaker, the DEFTECHs can do sonic feats the R700 cannot match. But if you're sensitive at all to high frequencies, the R700 still has the better, more well-mannered tweeter at all volumes. As for my beloved KLIPSCH speakers, be it the 8000F Mark IIs or even my Cornwalls, the DEFTECHs can have a livelier sound. They definitely have presence, but head to head, they still sound like a good speaker rather than one that starts to bleed into sounding live like KLIPSCH. That said, the DEFTECHs, absolutely monster. Even the Cornwall in terms of bass extension and accuracy. And given that both the DM80 and the Cornwalls benefit from some tweaking or EQing, the DEFTECH is definitely the better value. I still maintain that KLIPSCH Heritage products are heirloom speakers, and that has to be taken into account. But just going off the numbers, the DM80 is the superior product. It has been over 10 years since I waved goodbye to my personal Definitive Technology Super Towers, and to be honest, I had forgotten how great those speakers really were. Everything I loved about those speakers, it's present in the DM80 and then some. But just like with the old Super Towers, the new Dymension Series isn't for beginners, and they do require careful placement and some considerations. Still, get the balance just right, and you may start to look at more other, expensive speakers and ask yourself, is it really worth it? So that's it. That is now my review of Definitive Technology's Dymension Series DM80 Tower speaker. But before we go, what did you think of them?
I have a lot of feelings about these speakers.
Ooh.
And they're mostly good. Like,
okay.
don't worry.
All right.
They are so much fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never really experienced anything like them before. These are my first set of bipolar speakers, so this was totally new experience for me.
Yeah.
The bass is insane. It's insane, guys. You can literally feel it in your chest.
Yeah.
Andrew was not exaggerating. I mean, these speakers got me hooked on that Netflix series Drive to Survive about F1 teams, a sport I've never given two craps about. I mean, it feels like you're in the driver's seat.
It was binge worthy.
Yeah, it's a fun show.
Yeah.
Which I think these speakers really bring out, like, that just exciting, the excitement of the F1 experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that a part of the reason I felt the system was so unique was that its matching center.
Mm-hmm.
That because it's not just any center speaker; it has a subwoofer built into it, right?
Yes.
I thought maybe you touched on it a little bit in the review.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything more you can add.
I mean, for all of you people that are sticklers about center channels and how it can't be a good two-way and true full-range three-way center is really the only way to go, here you go. Here is your $1,500 answer to that question. It's fantastic. And I had the original bipolar, I guess BP Super Center, whatever it was, 10 years ago. And I remember being absolutely floored by it then. It is remarkable, and it is the best center speaker in terms of tonality, top to bottom, without any kind of crossover gaps, that we've had since the Elysian Center, which is also a three-way full-range center speaker. This is equally wide, nowhere near as tall, and can actually play lower than the Elysian.
Did the Elysian have a subwoofer in it?
It did not. It did not.
Because this felt like something, again, like I've never experienced anything quite like this system. It was, I mean, if you're into bass, I really don't know where else to point you towards. But it really does get me to thinking about who or what this system is for, because while I really enjoyed them for music just as much as for watching movies, their size and, in my opinion, styling is problematic.
Yes.
Just really quickly, these look better than I really expected them to look. Like when I saw the pictures, I'm pretty sure I rolled my eyes like, well, these are going to be bangers, right? They do look nicer than I expected, but they are big, imposing speakers.
Yeah.
I love that they have that more narrow profile, and even the minimal look of the black sock with the silver divider piece is a really, really nice touch. But they are still really big, and even on our very big room, feel a bit dominating.
Yes.
They definitely are rocking a man cave vibe, and I'm totally with you that I think fabrics would make them infinitely more decor friendly. Because here's the thing. as amazing as I think these are for home theater, it's not likely that you're going to put them behind a transparent acoustic screen.
No.
Because they need a lot of space to really sound their best.
Yes.
And your screening room would need to be insanely big for these to work behind a screen. This is something you and I talked about because I was really trying to figure out who's going to, like, where are these going?
Yeah.
So even if you use them in a more traditional way, I'm talking like in front of a screen, you're going to need some space.
Yeah.
And again, look, let's get real here. Most personal home theaters, with the exception of multi-million-dollar homes, you're talking about third bedrooms, basements,
dens,
small spaces. I'm talking about the traditional, like,
sure.
You know, we've got Valencia seating up in here,
Yeah.
you know? By the way, I hate those. Anyway, if you're considering these, you really, really, really need to think about this because of how far out, at least for us,
potentially,
that they could need to be placed.
Yeah.
Your field of view may be very limited unless you're seated directly in front of your screen.
Yeah.
So like in a space like ours, you know, I tried sitting off to the side and couldn't really see around the speaker.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to say.
I don't believe people are putting these behind acoustically transparent screens for all of the reasons that you mentioned. You're going to lose the benefits of having that bipolar if they're placed right up against the wall. Now, you can technically completely defeat the bipolar rear-facing speakers by simply just not connecting them. In which case, yes, then maybe you could get away with putting the speaker closer to a wall, but you'd kind of be losing the essence of what this speaker is designed to do. So unless you have like a false wall with 5-6 feet of space behind it that you hang your screen on with these behind it, I just don't see it as being a reasonable solution to put them behind something or hide them that way. As for field of view, I agree. Our couch is about 108, 109 inches wide. Seats 3-4 people comfortably. If you're on our sofa, they didn't get in the way of the 100-inch screen. But the second you were more than like a foot to either side of that kind of 108-inch wide tunnel of vision, the speakers were always very much kind of encroaching upon the edges of the screen, and that is problematic. As for their physical size, I think they've actually gotten a little bit smaller. I'm going completely off memory. I think they've gone a little bit smaller than my old Super Towers from 10 years ago. They are definitely look more streamlined, definitely look better made. Anyone that knows those older series speakers knows that those were pretty cheap. Amazing, but pretty cheap. These are way, way better. Now, if the size is daunting, obviously there are smaller ones in this series. This is the flagship. This is the big boy. There are 2 or 3 models below this that have built-in subs. Granted, they do get smaller. And then there's even a model that has this look with no built-in sub that is much more affordable and will obviously give you the spaciousness and stuff, but then will allow you the flexibility of maybe putting your subwoofer somewhere else. So just keep that in mind.
That's great. I'm glad you brought those other speakers in the series up, because that was something I was going to ask you about. The only thing I wanted to add was that, because I know a lot of people want to know, well, how is it for music? And you touched on this in the review. But for those of you who have just skipped to this part because you love our conversation so much, I too really enjoyed them for music. Yeah. They were a lot of fun. That one Enema, song, we've been sort of, I'm obsessed with it. I'll link to it. Hopefully I can find it.
Yeah.
We'll link to it for you in the description. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It was really good on these speakers. But again, it sucks because I just don't feel like these are very practical.
Yeah.
And for our room, I can't even consider them, even though they are some of the most fun speakers I've ever experienced. And we don't have them set up anymore. We're trying to get them back to DEFTECH. I do miss them.
Yeah.
I just don't miss looking at them.
100% with you. The second I unplugged them, started boxing them back up to get them back to DEFTECH, it's not that I can't enjoy other speakers, because I'm enjoying the crap out of what I have set up right now. But I won't lie to you and say that everything seems like a compromise almost immediately. Now, you can always adjust. You can always, reconfigure your ears and your brain, and you go, oh, okay, I like this. This is what I loved about this other setup, or this is what I love about this other speaker. But there's something about a true full-range speaker that when it's in your presence, you're like, oh, okay. And when we have these, it's kind of ironic, and it's why I made the Wilson comparison. While we had these, some video, I don't even remember which one it was, but someone was doing a tour of their theater, and they had like these $500,000 Wilsons. And they were just shoehorned into a space. And I totally 100% agree with the person who said, hey, this is my thing. This is my baby. I'm into it. This was for me, and that's why I bought them. You do you, man. And I 100% back that play. But it got me to Google that speaker. And again, on paper, and specs don't tell the whole story of a speaker. They do not. But on paper, these two speakers go head to head. If anything, the DEFTECHs are actually easier to live with and are more efficient, thus more amplifier friendly. So I was looking at that and I was like, okay, and that's when I really started to dig into like the DSP EQ, like what's Sony doing? What can I do with room EQ? Was like, how good can these really get? And as someone who sat in front of Max's, Max 2s, Sophia's, and a number of Wilson speakers over the years, I'm telling you, the transformative experience of being in front of a big speaker like that exists with the DM80. It does. And I'll go rounds with whoever wants to disagree with me, because head to head, throw a blindfold on you in the proper room set up. Not saying that this one will be indistinguishable from the other one, but I am saying that the hairs on your arms and your neck and that feeling of like that excitement, that the sound, the waves just energize you, they're there. They're totally there. And they're there for what, $5,000? So
yeah, I'm not really sure what they're
$24.99 each, so
yeah,
around $5,000 as opposed to $500,000.
Wait, the speakers talking about cost $500,000?
I think they're $500,000.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Well,
and I'd rather look at the DEFTECHs than those.
Or is this one of the speakers that looks like an ATM machine?
Yeah.
Jesus. Go ahead and send a pair of Wilsons. I dare you, Wilson.
Yeah.
I dare you. Anyway, they were a lot of fun.
They're so much fun.
I really would love to see them be a little bit more innovative with the styling. I think that would make such a huge difference.
Yeah, DEFTECH, give us a call. Let's do a Robinson edition. Let's have some fun. Well, is that it?
That's all.
All right, guys, that is now our review of DEFTECH's new Dymension Series DM80 flagship towers. What do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. Question of the day for you. It's this. Do you think I'm crazy in comparing these to $500,000 speakers?
Oh, why would you even open that up?
Let's crack it open. Sit back. I'm ready. Let's have the discussion. Come on, let's do it. Let's have some fun. Be respectful, but let's have some fun. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Kristi left for you down below, know that that's a great way that you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here, and both of us thank you all very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that's it. That's it for us today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next one. Bye.